What's up, everybody out there in YouTube land? Triple Beast is back once again in a haunted basement studio, and welcome and thank you for joining me today. And in this episode, I am going to talk Hellraiser. During a party at millionaire Roland Voigt's house, a sex worker named Joey is introduced to a mechanical puzzle box, also known as the Lament configuration box. As Roland encourages him to open it to try to solve the puzzle, he does, and he gets stabbed by a knife that comes out of the box. And then chains come out of the box and grab him and enter the Cenobites, a group of mutilated humanoids with a leader, Pinhead, and they demand human blood sacrifices. And they rip Joey apart with the chains. Opening cut credits scene. 6 years later, we are introduced to Riley, and she's a recovering addict. She's living with her brother in an apartment. Along in that apartment is her brother's boyfriend, Colin, and their roommates, Nora. Riley and her boyfriend, Trevor, go to an abandoned warehouse where they need to fucking steal something to get some money. But when they go to steal what's there, all they find is this box, this puzzle box. And so they get out of there. Later on, Trevor goes back to his apartment and Riley gets in a fight with her brother, Matt, at the apartment. And so she takes off and goes to a park in the middle of the night. And while she's at the park, she decides she's gonna fuck with this Lament configuration box, and she ends up solving one part of the first step, and a knife comes out, but it doesn't cut her. She absolutely just misses her, and she's so lucky it did. Later on, her brother's flipping out and fucking finds her at the park, like, where you at? Come back home. He goes and grabs the box and accidentally cuts himself. And then the Cenobites have arrived. Matt runs to the nearby restroom to clean his wound. Meanwhile, the Cenobites are slowly approaching. Riley's in her drug-induced blackout where she's slowly seeing something walking closer to her. All of a sudden, she hears screams, and it's Matt, and she runs to the restroom, but he has vanished. Riley comes to the conclusion that the only possibility way that Matt has vanished is because of the Lament configuration box. So her and Trevor go meet Sienna, which is Mr. Voigt's lawyer, and she's the one that put the configuration box in that abandoned storage unit. They wanted to make it like it was abandoned. So they pull out the box and show Sienna the box, and she goes and tries to grab it from Riley, and she accidentally cuts herself, and they leave with the box. But the symbiotes are now coming because they got that cut, that blood sacrifice. Sienna then goes to get her wound checked out in the infirmary. And all of a sudden the walls are closing in, different opening up, and a symbiote shows up and fucking takes her down. So Riley visits Roland's abandoned mansion where she discovers his journals, where she's able to read them, and it says that the box has multiple configurations, each of which requires a victim to be marked by the box's blade for the symbiotes to take. One completion, the box allows the holder to receive a gift from Leviathan, the entity that rules over hell. Riley sees the apparition of Matt, and she is horrified to discover that he has been burnt alive. Trevor, Colin, and Nora arrive at the abandoned mansion where Riley sees them, and then she's showing them what she has discovered. Meanwhile, a mutilated and still living Roland is living in the walls. He's able to grab the configuration box and stabs Nora with it. The group escapes in a van. Meanwhile, Nora is taken by the symbiotes, the priest, Pinhead, where she is taunted and fear-stricken by Pinhead. The group crashes the van and they walk back to the mansion. Riley is confronted by the priest and she offers her brother's resurrection if she gives her 2 more sacrifices. Riley refuses, and then she is cut by the blade, and now she is marked. And the priest commands Riley to give up 2 sacrifices or become the next victim. Trevor is injured by one of the symbiotes, the Chatterer, but Riley solves one of the limit configuration boxes puzzle, and the blade comes out, and she stabs the symbiote, and he gets torn to pieces. Meanwhile, they run back into the mansion where they realizes that all the metal gates and guards are able to keep the symbiotes out. That what the mansion is for, is to block them in or to block them out. Riley and Colin, they leave Trevor because he's hurt, and it reveals that Trevor is being the one that's leading these people to Roland, and he needs human sacrifices. And so Riley and Colin are able to track a symbiote in one of the gates, and they're able to fucking sacrifice it, and that would be the final sacrifice for Riley. But Roland appears and stabs Colin with the limit configuration box, and he reveals that he sought out pleasurable sensations after completing the sacrifices, but his reward was a contraption attacked to him that twisted every one of his nerves without ever ending. And Roland believes that he completed the final step to the limit configuration contraption, and he pleads with Leviathan to release him from this contraption. Meanwhile, Riley grabs the limit configuration box and she unlocks the gates and letting the symbiotes in, and they walk in one by one. And she grabs the limit configuration box and stabs Trevor with it, doing the real final sacrifice. Trevor is now mutilated and his body is dragged into hell. Meanwhile, the priest is telling Roland that his reward cannot be revoked, but we can trade it for a different one. How about power? And Roland accepts. And then the contraption gets ripped out of him, and then he is healed instantly. But then all of a sudden, a big chain from Leviathan comes down and fucking impales him and then drags him to Leviathan. And now, with the sacrifices complete, Riley is talking to the priest and she is offering the resurrection of her brother. And Riley knows that any gifts that come with the symbiotes is not good, it's only twisted and deranged. So she says, "No, I accept my brother's death." And the priest says, "Well, then, you living with the guilt of your brother's death is enough for the lament." And she leaves, and the lament configuration box turns back into its cube. All right, man. So my final thoughts and rankings on the new Hellraiser movie was pretty good. I'm glad that I watched it. The kills on it was pretty gruesome. I mean, like, I guess what they kind of did, like the negative parts of the movie would be like, let's get these kids, these people to the house with the symbiotes. And how can we get them there? The easiest way of letting you know. So it wasn't very confusing. I thought it was pretty straightforward of how they got there. But once they got there, and with all the fucking symbiotes, was awesome. I thought they looked fucking really bad ass. I mean, ugh. I mean, I don't know if I want to go down the rabbit hole of watching all the Hellraiser movies and doing reviews on them because I don't think I have enough soap. Haha. But anyways, yeah, I'm gonna give this movie Hellraiser, the new one from 2022, a 7 out of 10. That means glad I watched it, and yeah, not too fucking bad. And remember to stab that sub button on the way out of here, Sydney.